Welcome everyone to another session in our Sunday meditation gathering. Recently we've been looking at the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and we're in the first of these, which is the mindfulness of body. And specifically what we're looking at is the first part within that, and that is mindfulness of breath. So we started off in stages, first merely being aware of the coarse breath, this heavy breath as it's sometimes called, which is the breath that is naturally deeper, longer, maybe less erratic, more erratic, less stable. And then through observing the breath, what we find is that naturally then the breath itself becomes lighter and more subtle. Really through our mindfulness, then the entire physical process itself begins to relax, become more stable. There's a relationship between awareness and physical form and breath. And these things act in a feedback loop. So for example, in Hindu pranayama, we intentionally elongate the breath, make it deeper. We can hum through the breath, because these all have psychosomatic effects. They help the body relax, and they help the mind become more stable. Through this Theravedian practice, it's generally a Buddhist practice, but it's mostly focused in the Theravedian tradition. Then we start in stages by becoming aware of phenomena, physical body, and also mental events. But these things are linked. If you remember at the beginning of this section of the course, it discusses in the sutra how if you are fully engaged in merely awareness of the breath, then it includes everything else in it. And the most important thing ultimately is the mind. Now, for those of you who have meditated a bit, then you will know that at times you experience a kind of calming effect in meditation. Maybe if you've got a bit more experience, you'll also notice the experiences of bliss, clarity, and non-thought. But in general, the mind that is very agitated, that is very grasping, is the thing we're trying to move away from. And for the beginner, then that beginner has to kind of reduce their unnecessary thinking. But when it comes to Mahamudra practice, Dzogchen, then it doesn't matter how much you think. It's not about the fact that things are arising to your mind. It's whether you grasp at them or not. Now this mind that is free of grasping has a stillness to it, but it can have that stillness also when you're thinking. And you can have many thoughts. The difference is that you're not grasping at things. For example, you could see a movie, right? You'll see a movie maybe, and someone will take a knife and put it near somebody's eye. And we all react to that very, very drastically in general. Or if we see something that reminds us of our past trauma, then inside we tense up. The teeth might tense up. Even though that, let's say that needle or that blade coming near somebody's eye, like in a horror movie, isn't something that's affecting us. We identify with that. And so we physically might clamp up, but also the mind clamps up. When you're agitated, if you're at work, things aren't going right, or if you think, oh no, I forgot to do my taxes, the government's going to come on me, and we get uptight and anxious. And that aspect of mind is a disturbed mind, whether there are thoughts or not. Some people can not be thinking, but they can have a very tight mind. So this mind that settles down is this. It's the one that lets go. And you experience this, everyone experiences this when they sleep, because the mind becomes completely passive. And at some point, for example, you don't even have dreams, there aren't even appearances. So that's that aspect of the mind that is non-grasping. And when you breathe, what you'll notice is that the breath and being aware of the breath has an effect on your consciousness, right? So at times you'll have to look for that when you're breathing. You're watching the breath, right? Inhale, the breath has this tendency to make the mind more clear and open. When you exhale, has a tendency to make the mind kind of more subdued, like you're going to sleep and more relaxed. So you'll have to develop sensitivity so you can understand what's going on with awareness itself. For example, identify when I'm sitting in meditation, I'm agitated. I can't sit still, my knees are hurting. What's that feel like? At other times when meditation is going well, and everything feels very relaxed and open. So that's the space we're looking for, right? It's similar to sleep, but without drowsiness. And so in these stages of breath, initially, you're just breathing really coarsely. As you start to relax, the breath becomes more subtle. And as you start entering into this awareness of the whole body, where you're completely present with the breath, and the body becomes more and more relaxed, then the mind also is this way. It's like when you've got no worries. You know, maybe you've been working all year long, and then you get your 2 weeks holiday off and you go sit on the beach and just completely let go. And you haven't done it for months because you've just been too stressed out. That's the quality of mind you're looking for. That isn't falling asleep, and that isn't chasing after thoughts, grasping after thoughts. So now we've come to this point where it's a mindfulness of the stilling of the physical process. Now, the stilling of the physical process is related to the breath. As you become more centered, more relaxed, less clinging, the breath becomes almost imperceptible. But this also has a similar effect on the body and the mind. So the mind also achieves stillness. If you have tension in your body, when you become relaxed, everything naturally settles down with gravity. And the breath becomes imperceptible and slower, very subtle, but the mind also becomes less agitated. So the breath and mind are related, right? The mind tends to grasp or push away, fall into dullness or agitation. But there's a kind of resting state where you're just the observer. And in this, and when you're in that state, then naturally the breath becomes very subtle, the body becomes kind of immobile, and there's very little distraction. And also there's a feeling of being okay, of contentment, like it's enough. Often when we meditate, it's like, I should be doing something else, I'm not meditating well enough, or I'm not enjoying this, etc., etc., etc. But when you have the stilling of the process, this next stage we're going to look at now, then naturally the mind is content where it is. So I've probably said enough for now. We'll say some prayers and then we'll get into the meditation. Oh, glorious, precious root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon feet, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the cities of body, speech, and mind to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Sangha. Until enlightened I go for refuge. May I, by the virtue of meditation, become awakened to benefit beings to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Sangha. Until enlightened I go for refuge. May I, by the virtue of meditation, become awakened to benefit beings to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Sangha. Until enlightened I go for refuge. May I, by the virtue of meditation, become awakened to benefit beings with a supreme and precious awakening mind. Has not arisen, may it arise, and once it's arisen, may it not diminish, forever continue to flourish and thrive. I prostrate, make offerings, and confess, rejoice, request, and supplicate, whatever slight merit I gather here, to Buddhahood I dedicate. Sit well. Make sure your spine is straight. Center yourself on the breath. Mindfully breathing in and out. There is no need to control the breath. Merely aware of the inhalations and exhalations, whether they are heavy or light, coarse or subtle. Remain present with the breath. As you remain passively aware, you will notice that the breath naturally becomes lighter and more subtle. Notice too the effect of the inhalations and exhalations. As the breath begins to settle, the mind also begins to settle. If the mind is filled with anxiety, apprehension, then it will not naturally remain mindful of the breathing. Depend upon the breath, passively observe each inhalation and exhalation. As the mind and body begin to relax and let go, the breath becomes more subtle and fine. As the breath becomes imperceptibly soft and consciousness must become ever increasingly sensitive. Body and breath deeply relaxed, mind clear and lucid. As the breath becomes imperceptibly soft and the body deeply relaxed, lucid awareness as if your consciousness is left suspended in empty space. At times the breath becomes so subtle that it is not certain whether there is an inhalation or exhalation. The mind free of clinging, free of anxiety, lucid and clear. If you allow the mind to lose its clarity, to lose its sensitivity, then you may wander into drowsiness or become lost in distraction. Return to mindfulness of breath. Take a deep inhalation and exhalation and begin observing passively once again. when the breath becomes subtle, almost imperceptible. What is the nature of the inhalation? What is the nature of the exhalation? What is the nature of consciousness that is aware of the inhalation and the exhalation? What is the nature of mind that is letting go? What is the nature of mind that is free of clinging? mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Mani padme hum. Mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. By this merit may I obtain omniscience, defeat the enemy wrongdoing, and so free all beings from the ocean of existence, with its stormy waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Precious mind of awakening, may it arise in those who are without it, and never fade from those who hold it, but continually grow from strength to strength. May the glorious Lama's lotus feet be firm. May bliss and joy fill the reaches of space, as we gather the accumulations and purify obscurations. May I and all without exception be swiftly brought to Buddhahood. So next week is the weekend retreat here in Germany. That means there'll be no meditation next week. And those of you who are joining remotely over Zoom, then you'll have the sessions with us throughout the day anyway. And that means that we'll have the next one 2 weeks from now. Not next week, but the next week after will be the next Sunday gathering on Zoom and live stream on YouTube. So your homework is to, in that time, is to work with the subtlety of the breath, right? The stilling of the physical process of breathing. You have to gain some kind of experience in this, and the practice has to get some depth or profundity, because the next stages get increasingly harder. Because we're looking at this sort of priti and the sukha, which are like rapture and joy. And unless you have a kind of mental stability and this acuity in the mind, then these are not going to arise for you. If you're distracted, then you won't notice it anyway. And if you're falling asleep, for example, you won't notice it anyway. But you have to at least have some kind of stability. So please try to practice as much as you can every day. All right. Until next time. And see you later.